Okay, everyone. Welcome to the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame Hero Chat. My name is Shane Mailman. I'm the Director of Programs and Operations. Just a couple of things for housekeeping before we get started. As I stated just a few minutes ago, please turn off your microphones, just so that the only audio that we picked up will be Bruce and Ted. The way to do that, it's in your left-hand corner at the bottom. You can mute it. I'm able to mute people too if something happens that you're unable to do that. So feel free to leave your camera on if you want. It's up to you. You can turn your camera on, turn your camera off. It doesn't really matter. We are recording the session, and we will share it with you all after the session is over. And there's a thing called speaker view for anyone that's not familiar with Zoom. It's up on your right-hand corner. Speaker view will only pick up the person that is talking, so you'll be able to see Bruce and Ted as they're interacting. So now I'm going to pass it off to
for some reason
Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame CEO Bruce Rainey, who just got back from broadcasting his 10th Olympic Games. And our guest today is Ted Upshaw, who is Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Famer. He is one of the province's all-time greatest basketball players. And overall, and most importantly, he's a great person. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Bruce, and hopefully everyone enjoys.
All right, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for attending our session here today. We're really excited to bring this to you. Ted Upshaw is a great Nova Scotian, a great guy, wonderful athlete, and a wonderful leader. He's gone on to do amazing things in his life. He came from a very small community in the Annapolis Valley region of Nova Scotia and has done, as I say, great things. So I want to bring Ted on. And Ted, hopefully you can hear, we've got over 300 classes around the province signed up for this today. So we're very excited about that. That's thousands and thousands of students, and you're about to hear some stories and some lessons, some life lessons from really great Nova Scotians. So Ted, welcome. And I want to, actually, do you want to test your mic, Ted? Make sure everybody can hear you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And yes, I'm a little bit nervous with all those young folks out there having a boo at this old guy now.
Yeah, I think they're going to be happy to see this old guy here today. Listen, we had a lot of, I'm going to try to mention as many schools as I can. And Ted, I thought we'd do an interview, but the questions from the kids are so good that I'm just going to use those and we'll create a little story here. We'll start with basketball. We'll talk a bit about RCMP, and we'll talk a bit about lessons learned in life as well. So there was sort of a combination of questions from École de Carrefour, the grade 6C class, and the grade 4 students at Tompkins Memorial Elementary in Reserve Mines, Nova Scotia. And they basically asked this question: can you tell us a bit about your life, where you were born, where you went to school?
Yeah, I can handle that one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much up there in Cape Breton. I grew up in an area called 3 Mile Plains, just outside of Windsor.
Even the computer audio is
Valley,
cool.
and the road I grew up on is Punnock Road. The area was Punnock Road was predominantly a Black community, and we ended up having to go to school to the elementary. Was 3 Mile Plains District Elementary, and you know the old joke. Well, this is no joke. We actually had to walk to school uphill, not both ways because we had to come downhill, but we actually had to walk to school to 3 Mile Plains, which would have been probably about two kilometers. And you know, when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, that's a long way to haul. And then eventually we, went on to Windsor Regional High School, and we end up having buses for that area. So that's the schooling. Then on to Acadia University after that for 5 years.
Ted, was it what we would think of as sort of a poorer upbringing? Was there a lot of money in that area or not?
Yeah, no, there wasn't, Bruce. And while I certainly say that it was predominantly a Black area, everybody who lived in the area were, we would say, economically challenged, which brought us to some degree on even footing when it came to that piece.
Question from Sherwood Park Education Center in Sydney, Nova Scotia. What do you remember about being introduced to basketball? What age were you? What are your earliest memories? That sort of question.
Okay, listen, I grew to be 6'6". Starting out,
Okay, listen up.
I was just, I would consider a small person, and everybody on the road, everybody at a younger age was playing basketball on the road, but we were just playing in the yard, and playing in the yard. When I say that, we played on an old bicycle rim, nailed up on a tree. But as we went on and watching people grow, and I remember this fella, Harley Gray. Matter of fact, he's my brother-in-law now. Harley was quite an athlete in his day, and I would see him doing so many things, and I kind of went, I can do that, but I was just a little guy. So then when I went on to junior high, which would have been into Windsor, I played probably about, I don't know, maybe 11th, 12th, if I made the team. That's where I was, but I loved it so much that I just went out every day and continued to play with folks, because that was our socialization as well.
Question, Ted, from West Highland School, grades 4 and 5, and I think this is a good next transition. And you might have kind of hinted at this, but we can expand on it a bit. Did you find basketball easy as soon as you started playing?
No, not at all. I found it easy because I loved it and because everybody else was doing it, but trying to dribble and wasn't really that easy on the rough grounds that we played on in the beginning, being relatively short. And although I will certainly say to all those out there listening, being short doesn't really mean a lot as long as you got the heart and desire and can build it. And you look at some of the players that we can all name, they weren't huge. Michael Jordan, I'll throw out there, was only 6'6". And I say only, but he was a heck of a player in the NBA. So no, it wasn't easy, but I stayed with it, and I, developed to the player I became.
A couple of questions here that are kind of short snappers, but are fun ones. I think a lot of the kids have watched the video of you and have seen you in your Acadia uniform, number 22. We had a couple of questions here, real simple. Why the number 22? Can you recall why you chose that?
No, I because in high school I was 45. It was just the number that came to me. See, the thing was, back in the day, you didn't have a lot of choices when you went on to university. You first wanted to make the team, and then when you were assigned your uniform, you got what you got, and it just happened to be 22, and it stayed with me, fortunately, for the rest of my career, and that's what I will be known as, number 22 at Acadia University.
Yeah, that one came from Bishop Grosvenor Wentworth Park School. There's one here. You know how kids love dunks? So it's a question from grade 9 at West Colchester Consolidated School. Can you guess how many career dunks you would have had? And again, the kids probably watched that video where at Acadia, you had a lot of dunks. Any guess how many times you threw the ball through that hoop?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. Because the memory goes after so long in games and so on and so forth. But look, I probably dunked on average once, twice every second game that we played. And as I hindsight it myself and gotten smarter in being able to play, wow, the amount of dunks that I could have gotten now that I know so much, because I could jump. I just dunked for fun.
Here's a great question, Ted, from a Cole Car 4. This month at school, we are learning about Black History Month. Were there obstacles in your life, in your sports, or in your career? Maybe we'll get to the career. So think about life and sports first here. Due to the fact that you were not white.
Listen, growing up, unfortunately, I was certainly called negative names by some people. How did you deal with it? Most of the time you just went on with life. I would say, however, though, in general, with some of the more challenges that I had, when I talk about having to walk to school, having then to go to practice, and get in, have to walk a mile, jump on a bus, and then go to practice afterwards. Being in school, when, from trying to achieve your academics, because you had to get your marks in order to continue to play. So some of those were challenges, because unfortunately back in the day there weren't necessarily high expectations. That it was more directed to vocational school. Oh, he won't get those marks. So I would say it was more of a general challenge for me. And I mean, I could certainly go into how I dealt with some of those challenges by hitting them face on, getting some education, and certainly accepting the supports that I did along the way. So yeah, there were certainly some things, but I certainly was not prepared to let it stop me from achieving what I wanted to do and go.
Here's a nice one from Ms. Pinio's grade 7 ELA class, and this is from McKenna, who said, if you ever felt like giving up and losing motivation, what pushed you to keep going?
McKenna, that's a good question. I think what happened for me was, I don't know if I ever really came to a wall where I wanted to quit, because I kept seeing myself getting better. I kept seeing myself taking a half step. And sometimes I'd be frustrated because I would think that I should be further than I should be. I thought that I should be getting more time. But
Now,
with patience, with the patience that I had, I stayed with it, and eventually it paid off.
Here's a great one, Ted, from Hayden, who I believe is still in that Mrs. Pinio's grade 7 ELA class. For everybody watching here, Ted was a great leader, and he was the captain of his high school team and the captain of his Acadia team in his later years. What did it mean to you, and what was it like being a leader on the basketball court?
On the basketball court, it was one of those things. I didn't strive to be the captain. I didn't strive. I went out every day and did what I did. And obviously the team, the coaches saw something in me to said, you know what, we want that guy to be the captain. And so, because we would always vote our captains in. And so I got voted in. What it meant was that I had to come out every day ready to play, ready to practice. Listen, I can't say that I didn't get in any trouble, but I didn't get any major trouble. And because as a captain, you had to lead, and sometimes it wasn't lead with what you said, it was what you did.
Here's a great question from Tripp, and this goes back to, I think, what being a good teammate is. Have you ever missed a shot when a player makes a great pass to you? And how do you feel when you miss that shot, knowing the player worked hard to get you the ball?
Yeah, you don't want to miss any shots. You want to hit them 100%, but I don't know if anybody hits 100%. I guess you hit 100% of the ones that you don't take. But you just, you take that shot and you acknowledge the play of the person who worked hard to get you the ball. You missed it, but I guarantee you this next time down, I'm not missing that shot, because either one, I'll pull up and take it there, or I'll take it another step closer and lay it in from there. So I just work harder for the next shot, because I can't change that last one.
Here's one from Spencer, and you might not even know this number because I know you're a humble guy, but when you beat the Acadia University record for the regular season points of 1,563, how happy were you?
Spencer, I can't remember it. I can't, but when you tell me it now, or previously when someone mentioned it to me, I get warm all inside, because it would be pretty exciting. And I kind of wish I could go back and really appreciate that record breaker at the time. I mean, was it Steph Curry who hit something a couple nights ago, and they were setting him up to hit those points, or Sidney Crosby was hitting those points. But I didn't know. But now when I hear those stories and someone like yourself asking me, be pretty exciting. It's exciting today.
Yeah, here's an anonymous question, no name, but it's a great question. Can you remember your highest scoring game ever, be it junior high, high school, or Acadia, or even after that, playing senior basketball?
Yeah, you know, listen, so many games, so many years. I remember what I remember playing a team, and it would have been would have been in junior high. I scored something like 40, 43 points. Why I remember that? Because that was more points than the other team scored, and we beat them. So it was one of those 43-point ones. You know, there was if I had game highs of 40, 35, those kinds of things, but that one jumps out at me because I outscored the other team.
Here's a question from the AWEC grade 6W class. And this goes to, I think, anxiety and overcoming nervousness. When were you most nervous playing basketball, and how did you overcome it?
You know, I was somewhat nervous before every game. But in answer to that, but when I look at when were you the most nervous, I'll tell you exactly when it was. Going out, well, there was a couple times, but one for sure was when we were playing in the Halifax, in the new Metro Center. When you came out to play, and before we played, you're looking out there and the place is packed, standing room only. And remember, I told you, I'm from Punick Road, 3 Mile Plains, a small community. To walk out there and see 11,000 fans that were hooting and hollering, nervous. How did I get over it? Back into the locker room, we listened to some music, we, cheered each other up, and then we went out and got into our warm up. And go back to the dunk question. You start dunking in warm up, and that's starting to make you feel good. You're hitting your shot. So really, it was just trying to appreciate what was around you, and then do what you normally do.
So, Ted, you've had several remarkable segments in your life. One is basketball. Another is this wonderful career with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And a lot of questions from all the schools. I think every school had this question. What made you interested in becoming a police officer after your years at Acadia?
Bruce, listen, I was interested in being a police officer probably in my junior high to high school. And really what turned that key one time is growing up Punick Road. Oftentimes you'd see police cars because Punick Road, you drove up and you had to turn around and come back down. The only time most of the time you saw a police car going up and wondering, okay, who are they going to see or who are they coming to get? But then one day I'm into high school gym just playing pickup, and this Mountie came in, or cop, or whatever we want to call him, Gary Humphreys, who is now passed away. But Gary came in uniform. Gary took off his uniform and come out in his shorts, in sneakers, and we played. Like he was just one of the guys. And I said, oh, look, I could become a Mountie. I can still play basketball, and I get a chance to hang out with kids, which again, in the future was actually great for me as a Mountie. So it was something that I always wanted to do and never lost that vision right up to going.
So that kind of puts a bow on the basketball. So to put the bow on it really nicely, we've got a little bit of a video we want to show of you to all the kids. And this is grainy because the video is a little bit older, but watch how good Mr. Upshaw was at basketball, folks. Take a look here.
For 5 years at Acadia, he really needed no introduction, but here's a good one anyway.
Starting at forward, standing 6'6" from Windsor, Nova Scotia, Ted Upshaw.
Ted Upshaw was pretty much a hometown hero for the Axemen. He grew up just a 20-minute drive away in the small community of 3 Mile Plains, just outside of Windsor. From an early age, he had all the makings of a basketball star.
22 is a local hero. Upshaw played a great game last night. 42 is Mike Hazard. Upshaw off the rim, gets his rebound, hits the first hoop of the game.
Yeah, so there he is. This guy was a great player. That was the game you mentioned where there were 11,000 fans. So if we use that, Ted, as a point here to transition from basketball to your second life as an RCMP officer and as a father and a husband and a community advocate, a lot of questions here, and I think it's a product of what the kids have been studying this past month. But here's a wonderful question. Did you ever experience any systemic racism as the first African Canadian to become a commissioned officer with the RCMP? And that's an amazing milestone for you. Ted was the first African Canadian ever to become a commissioned officer with the RCMP. And I guess a lot of kids want to know, did you experience any racism along the way?
Yeah, listen, Bruce, the answer to that is right off the top. Yes, I did. You know, from things being when I first went to training in Academy and Depot, being one of, there were two Black recruits there, I being one of them, and you know, a few things said from other members or other recruits, a few things said by corporals, and so you go through that, and as time goes on, you know, I transferred. My first posting was out in a little town called Sydney, BC. Beautiful little area, and you know, again, not often has anybody had seen a Black Mountie out there, and I won't go into the total details of maybe what was said or what wasn't said, but I would suggest that the systemic racism was how long it took for someone like myself, and I'll go back to the academy. I always wanted to be an instructor at the academy. I had graduated from Acadia University with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. That was one of the basics that you needed to be an instructor at the training academy in Regina. I had applied a number of times, or I had applied because I had now 12 years of service. I had a great record, but yet I wasn't there. And eventually, the government came out with employment equity, that they designated 2 positions in Regina for instructors who were to be visible minorities. So I applied and was one of the successful candidates that got there. Why did I wait? Why did I have to wait that long when I had all the background to do what needed to be done? Anyway, to move forward quickly, I then was promoted to sergeant in a diversity section in Ottawa. Again, why did it have to be in a diversity section? Why didn't I just get promoted on my background and what I bring? And finally, I had the fortunes of actually coming to Cole Harbour when I was a sergeant and worked in the Cole Harbour detachment and participated in the officer candidate program. And when the inspector in charge of Cole Harbour moved on, I had been now eligible. I had passed the exams and all the stuff. And fortunately, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, would I like to be the officer in charge as an inspector? And that's where I got my commission in Cole Harbour. And again, I was prepared to accept it, and I accepted it. What I want to say with that is, while you can be cranky and say that there was employment equity and you didn't get it because of this or that, I was not going to turn it down and say, well, no, I don't want it because of. No, I'm taking the promotion, and I have to tell you, one of my best experiences was when I went to the Black Cultural Center and the communities, not only just surrounding the Black Culture Center from Preston's and 3 Mile, but our communities came together and held a great ceremony where I got a parchment and I got my promotion. So yes, there still is. It's just a question of how you deal with it.
And Ted, I'm glad you say that because a lot of kids are asking from all of these schools, and you've touched on this, but maybe put it all together in a thought or two. How did you overcome it? And maybe what can kids who are watching now learn from how you did overcome it?
Mhm. I think one of the main things for me is firstly, um, while on the basketball court, I made room. I was big, I was strong. I just played. In life, I kind of did the same thing. I didn't react to somebody calling me a negative name in a physical way. Sometimes I would just consider the source and just walk on. Well, one of the biggest things I think was education. When I get educated, and as you go along and get educated, you find better ways to deal with things other than physical. You're able to have conversation. And will that work every time? Absolutely not. But for me, it worked a lot of times. I just continued to try to get better at what I did. And unfortunately, there were some times that some folks thought you had to be better than that. But when I got as good as I could and worked hard at it and achieved, that opened up a lot of doors in every area. And it's
Grade
still
six
didn't.
class.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry. Grade 6 class at Trenton Middle School and other classes too. And we have, I think, time for two more questions. So I know you a bit, so I want you to answer this question because I think it speaks to the notion that you sometimes don't have to look too far for your heroes, okay? To this day, if I ask you, who is your hero? You don't say Michael Jordan and you don't say LeBron James. And I'd love the kids to hear you tell them who's your hero.
My hero is my mother, who has passed away a few years ago. And I say that because I look back of how we grew up. We already talked about growing up with no money per se. My dad worked as a laborer, and we had food and we had clothing, but we didn't have a lot of money. When I look at and we lived in a house, there was 7 of us, and it was a 2-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom house, girls, guys, and mom, dad. No running water, but yet mom made sure our clothes were clean. The water got dragged in from the well, warmed on this or heated on the stove. There were these frozen pants up behind the stove. Like, mom did a lot of things and made me be able to go on and become the person and the man I am today. So
Yeah,
that's
great.
why it's very easy to say my mom is my hero.
That's awesome. Listen, I think as a final 2 questions here, okay? We had one from Gladys, and Gladys asked, how did it feel to be inducted into the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame?
That weekend for me was absolutely fantastic. From my Acadia days and alumni, people getting together and having a function in the city prior to the induction night, and then going to the induction, knowing the Hall of Fame and knowing the people that are in there. I spoke of Harley Gray earlier. His brother Clyde Gray is in the Hall of Fame. He's from Pontic Road. It's one thing to be in the Hall of Fame as a team, and that's great, absolutely fantastic. But as an individual athlete, to walk in there and walk down that aisle and be called up on stage, in this case by yourself, my heart was it was exploding. And then to look over there and see my family standing up and hooting and hollering, it was one of the best feelings. It almost as good as winning the national championship back in '76.
Very cool. Here's the last one, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. And this is a really important one. The main reason, Ted, we do these chats is so that kids around this province can learn something from your story. We want them to know that, yes, you can accomplish great things if you kind of fill in the blank here. what do you think is the biggest thing that the kids watching today can learn from the story of Ted Upshaw from 3 Mile Plains, Nova Scotia?
So I'm just going to flip back real quickly to the last question, my answer. I want to finish that off as well, which leads into this. Getting inducted to the Sports Hall of Fame, and I can look out there and I can see somebody on my Zoom here now going, if I can get up on that stage someday, so can you. And it's so nice that I can look out and say that. And so I moved that back to the question you just asked me. And what I would say to all that are watching, and I've said it many times, what I've learned and what I try and talk to young people about is have a desire, have something that drives you, but you need to have the desire, because it's no good if Ted Upshaw or Bruce Rainey or your wonderful teacher saying, you can be a great basketball player, or you are a great table tennis player, or you are a great whatever it is that they think you are. You need to have that desire. But I think then once you have that desire, you have to have commitment. You have to be committed to what it is that you want to be great at. So once you're committed, and then there's the support. If you can get the support, which there's always somebody out there to support you, please accept it. Don't say it's from this person or that person. If somebody's lending you a hand, take it. They want to help you. And my final one is patience. I spoke of Michael Jordan as a player because you guys, most of you guys, you wouldn't know Julius Erving. I knew I couldn't be a Julius Erving, or I couldn't be a Michael Jordan today. I may not be a Michael Jordan tomorrow. I need to be the best I can in the area I am. But so have patience. You're not going to hit all of those jump shots. You're not going to hit all of those shots on net. But if you're patient, you will. So if you can take those 4 little things with you, I think that's a very good recipe to success.
So kids, there you go. All around Nova Scotia, this is one of our great athletes in Nova Scotia history, and also one of the great leaders in Nova Scotia history. A remarkable career with the RCMP, a remarkable legacy at Acadia University, and we're really, really, really proud to have him in the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame. It's 11:05 now. We promised you 35 minutes. I think we hit it. I don't know if Shane wants to come back on and wrap this up, but before he does, I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning this in. We're so glad to come into your schools. I hope you learned something really important, and we'd love to see you again sometime when we do this again, okay? So why doesn't everybody give Ted Upshaw a nice hand in your class, okay? Nice hand. We can see you all clapping, and we thank you so much.
Thanks all you guys very much.
So everyone, I can say on behalf of the staff of the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame, we love to do our best to honor our great sport heroes in the province. So to the students, thank you for taking the time with us today. Thank you to the teachers for signing up for this. Thanks to Bruce, who is still on a little bit of a time change, a little bit tired from time change, to making this happen. And most of all, thanks to Ted for taking the time out of his day to tell us his story. I'm sure all you guys could tell that he's not only a great athlete, he's a great person. So anyway, thanks a lot to everyone, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon and do this again. Thanks a lot.